Have you ever looked at a magnificent bear, perhaps in a film or a photograph, and thought to yourself, it looks rather like a very large dog? This is a common thought. Many people observe a bear and are struck by certain resemblances to our familiar canine companions. Is there some hidden truth to this intriguing idea? Do these impressive creatures share more with our beloved pets than just a furry coat, 4 legs and a wet nose? It is a question that invites us to look more closely at these remarkable animals and explore their place in the vast tapestry of life on our planet. Consider for a moment their playful tumbles or the way they sometimes sniff the air with intense concentration. These actions can look remarkably similar to those we see in our own dogs every day. It is quite easy to understand why we might make this connection when we observe them. Their sturdy snouts, their alert ears, and even the structure of their paws can seem wonderfully familiar to us. These superficial similarities often spark our curiosity and make us wonder about the deeper connections that might exist between such different yet seemingly alike inhabitants of the natural world. But are these resemblances merely on the surface, a trick of the eye perhaps? Or is there something more profound, a hidden link woven into the very fabric of their being, connecting these magnificent creatures to our domestic friends? This question sets us upon a fascinating journey of discovery. To find the answers, we will need to delve into their distant past, explore their genetic heritage, and observe their present-day behaviors with a keen eye. We must investigate how nature has shaped them over countless millennia. Through this exploration, we will uncover the truths about their family relationships, their unique ways of life, and the distinct characteristics that make each of them so special. So let us embark on this captivating investigation together. Our aim is to understand, are bears truly just giant, untamed dogs roaming the wilderness? Or is the story far more complex and wondrous than we might initially imagine? The natural world is full of such fascinating puzzles waiting for us to explore. Observe a bear as it ambles with purpose through the dense forest. Its distinctive gait, a powerful and deliberate movement, can often remind one of a very large, strong dog making its way through its territory. They both walk on 4 legs, of course, employing a broadly similar pattern of limb coordination to propel themselves forward. However, there is a key difference. Dogs are typically digitigrade, meaning they walk on their toes, which contributes to their agility. Bears, on the other hand, are plantigrade, walking on the soles of their feet, much like humans do. Despite this anatomical distinction, the overall visual impression of their movement can be strikingly alike, especially from a distance. Think carefully about how a domestic dog investigates its surroundings, its nose twitching constantly as it follows an interesting scent on the ground. A bear behaves in a very similar manner, employing its exceptional sense of smell with great intensity and focus. It relies heavily on this olfactory ability to locate sources of food such as berries or fish, or to detect the presence of other animals, including potential dangers. This characteristic sniffing behavior, with the head held low and moving from side to side, is a shared trait. It serves as a vital tool for survival in their respective and often challenging natural environments. Have you ever noticed your own dog tilting its head when something piques its curiosity? Bears also display this endearingly inquisitive gesture. Young bears, known as cubs, frequently engage in boisterous tumbles and playful wrestling matches. They interact with their siblings with an energy and enthusiasm that is remarkably similar to that of puppies. These playful antics are not merely for amusement, they are crucial for their healthy development. Through such play, they learn essential social skills, test their strength, and practice the hunting and foraging techniques they will need as adults. The sheer unadulterated joyous energy emanating from a playful bear cub can easily bring to mind the delightful image of a puppy engaged in similar frolics. It's a truly delightful parallel to observe in the untamed corners of our world. Even the seemingly mundane way they might stretch their bodies after a long nap can appear quite familiar to us. Imagine a long, satisfying stretch, perhaps accompanied by a wide yawn, releasing any lingering stiffness from their limbs. These simple, everyday actions, when observed from a safe and respectful distance, contribute significantly to the overall impression of a giant dog. But we must ask ourselves, are these movements and gestures telling the complete story of their relationship? Or are they merely charming coincidences, superficial similarities that we as humans readily notice and perhaps even overemphasize due to our familiarity with dogs? To truly understand the relationship between bears and dogs, we must journey back in time and examine their shared family tree. Both of these fascinating groups of animals belong to a large and diverse order of mammals known scientifically as carnivora. This classification means that they share a very distant common ancestor, a creature that lived many millions of years ago. One can imagine this ancient being as a very, very old grandparent in their extensive family history. This ancestral carnivoran was the evolutionary starting point for many of the predatory and meat-eating mammals that we recognize across the globe today, from tiny weasels to giant whales. However, it is crucial to understand that the evolutionary paths of bears and dogs diverged a considerably long time ago. Think of the tree of life, with its myriad branches reaching out in all directions. The main trunk, in this analogy, represents their shared carnivoran ancestor. But from this trunk, bears ventured down one significant branch, eventually forming the distinct family known as Ursidae. Dogs, along with their close relatives like wolves, foxes and jackals, embarked on a different evolutionary journey, branching off to form the family Canidae. These two major branches separated from each other well over 50 million years in the past, a vast expanse of geological time. Therefore, while bears and dogs are indeed classified within the same broad biological order, they are certainly not immediate family members. The connection is more akin to saying that humans and lemurs are related. We share a common primate ancestor far back in our evolutionary history, but we have evolved into very different species with distinct characteristics today. The genetic link between bears and dogs is undeniably present, but it is quite distant, stretched across eons of separate development. How far back in time would we actually have to travel to find that single ancestral creature that ultimately gave rise to both the bears and the dogs we see today? It's a journey deep into the prehistoric past of our planet. This significant genetic distance between the Ursidae and Canidae families means that they cannot interbreed. A bear cannot produce offspring with a dog, nor can a dog reproduce with a bear. Their respective DNA has become too different over the vast periods of their separate evolution, so from a purely scientific and genetic standpoint, a bear is definitively not a type of dog. They represent distinct and separate branches on the magnificent tree of life, each uniquely shaped and molded by its own specific evolutionary journey through changing environments and challenges. Why then, if bears and dogs are not closely related, do they sometimes look and act in ways that appear so remarkably alike? The answer to this intriguing puzzle often lies in a fascinating biological phenomenon known as convergent evolution. This is a truly captivating concept within the study of nature. Convergent evolution occurs when unrelated or distantly related species independently evolve similar physical traits or behaviors. They develop these resemblances not because they share a recent common ancestor, but because they face similar environmental pressures or adopt comparable lifestyles in their respective ecological niches. Imagine, if you will, two entirely different inventors working in separate workshops, perhaps in different parts of the world, completely unaware of each other's efforts. If both inventors are tasked with creating a tool to efficiently dig holes in the ground, they might independently design implements that look quite similar, perhaps something resembling a shovel or a spade. Nature, in its own way, works along similar principles. If inhabiting a dense forest and needing to locate hidden food sources is a persistent challenge, then possessing an acute sense of smell and strong, sturdy paws equipped for digging become highly advantageous traits for survival. Both bears and certain canid species independently developed these useful attributes. For instance, both bears and dogs typically possess relatively elongated snouts. This particular anatomical shape is beneficial because it provides more surface area within the nasal cavity for olfactory receptors, thereby enhancing their keen sense of smell, which is vital for finding food and detecting danger. Furthermore, many species of bears and some types of canids are equipped with strong, non-retractable or semi-retractable claws. These claws can be effectively used for a variety of tasks, such as digging up roots and tubers, excavating insects from beneath the soil, or unearthing small burrowing animals. These are features that evolved independently in these separate lineages because they conferred a significant survival advantage in their specific environments, not because they directly inherited them from a recent common dog-like or bear-like ancestor. Consequently, some of the striking similarities we observe between bears and dogs are not primarily due to close genetic ties or recent shared ancestry. Instead, they are often the result of nature independently arriving at similar solutions to comparable problems faced by these animals in their struggle for existence. Isn't it truly amazing and thought-provoking how different animal lineages, separated by millions of years of evolution, can nonetheless find such similar and effective answers to the fundamental challenges of life? This remarkable process of convergent evolution stands as a powerful testament to the ingenuity and efficiency of natural selection, meticulously shaping creatures to fit perfectly within their diverse worlds. Beyond mere physical appearance and general movement patterns, bears and dogs share some rather intriguing and engaging behavioral traits. One of the most readily noticeable of these shared characteristics is a profound sense of curiosity. Both species are well known for their tendency to thoroughly investigate new or unfamiliar objects and scents encountered within their environment. A domestic dog, for example, might excitedly sniff and tentatively paw at an unusual item it discovers in your garden. Similarly, a bear roaming in the wild might cautiously approach a newly fallen log, a strange scent marking left by another animal or an unfamiliar object, attempting to understand its nature and potential significance. This inherent inquisitiveness plays a crucial role in their ability to learn, adapt, and exploit new resources. Playfulness is another wonderful and often endearing characteristic that is shared between these two groups of animals, particularly when they are young. We have previously touched upon the sight of bear cubs tumbling, wrestling, and chasing each other with boundless enthusiasm. Puppies, of course, are legendary for their almost inexhaustible playful energy, delighting us with their antics. This type of play is far more than just frivolous fun. It serves a vital purpose in their development. Through these playful interactions, young animals learn essential life skills, such as coordination, balance, and social rules within their group. They also get to practice rudimentary hunting or foraging techniques that will be critical for their adult survival. Even adult bears and dogs can often be observed engaging in moments of spontaneous play, demonstrating that this important instinct remains with them throughout their lives. Scientists across various disciplines are increasingly recognizing and studying the complex emotional intelligence exhibited by many animal species. And this certainly includes both bears and dogs. Both types of animals can display behaviors that we, as human observers, readily interpret as signs of joy, excitement, frustration, or even deep affection, particularly within their own social groups or family units. Mother bears, for example, are renowned for being fiercely protective and incredibly nurturing towards their vulnerable cubs, showing a powerful maternal bond. Domestic dogs, as many of us know from personal experience, form deep and lasting bonds with their human families and often with other dogs in the household. While we must always exercise caution and avoid over-attributing distinctly human emotions to animals, the capacity for rich and complex social interactions and emotional responses is clearly evident in both. Furthermore, both species demonstrate remarkable and often surprising problem-solving abilities, showcasing their cognitive capabilities. Dogs can be trained to understand and respond to a wide array of complex commands, navigate intricate obstacle courses, and even assist humans in various tasks. Bears, too, are well known for their considerable intelligence, especially when it comes to the challenge of finding food. They have been observed opening complex latches on rubbish bins, figuring out how to access secured food caches, and even solving puzzles designed by researchers. This shared cognitive ability is another fascinating area where we see a compelling parallel, a distinct spark of intelligence that allows them to thrive and adapt successfully in diverse and often demanding environments. Does this shared intelligence, this capacity for learning and adaptation, bring them closer in our minds, despite their genetic distance? This discussion of shared traits naturally leads us to a crucial and fundamental difference between bears and dogs: the process of domestication. Dogs hold the distinction of being one of humanity's oldest and most steadfast animal companions. We have lived alongside them, sharing our lives and our homes for tens of thousands of years. This incredibly long and intimate process of cohabitation has genetically altered dogs in profound ways. They have been selectively bred by humans over countless generations for specific desirable traits such as tameness, a willingness to cooperate with humans, and particular skills suited to various tasks like herding, hunting, or guarding. This is the essence of what we call domestication. It represents a truly profound and transformative journey from their wild wolf ancestors into the diverse array of breeds we know today. Bears, on the completely other hand, are fundamentally wild animals. They have never undergone this extensive human-guided process of domestication that has so thoroughly shaped dogs. A bear that has been raised in captivity from a very young cub might, under certain circumstances, appear to be tame or accustomed to human presence. It might even form a discernible bond with a dedicated human caregiver who provides for its needs. However, despite any outward appearances of docility, its fundamental wild instincts remain incredibly powerful and fully intact. These instincts are deeply and inextricably ingrained in its DNA, meticulously shaped by millennia of independent survival in the untamed wilderness, not by generations of cooperation and cohabitation with human beings. Why, then, have bears not been domesticated in a similar manner to dogs? There are several significant factors that make the domestication of bears highly unlikely, if not practically impossible. Their sheer physical size and immense strength, for instance, pose considerable and undeniable safety risks to humans, even if the bear's intentions are not aggressive. Their dietary requirements are also substantial and often quite specialized, varying between species, making them difficult to provide for consistently in a domestic setting. Furthermore, many bear species are, by their very nature, largely solitary creatures as adults. Unlike the inherently pack-oriented social structure of wolves, from which all domestic dogs descend. This pre-existing social framework in wolves made them more amenable to integrating into human social groups. So, while it is true that an individual bear might be trained through conditioning to perform certain specific behaviors or to tolerate human proximity to some degree, it is critically important to understand that it is not domesticated in the true sense of the word. Its inherent deep-seated wildness cannot be simply bred out or erased in a few generations, or likely ever. The romantic or whimsical idea of keeping a pet bear in the same way one might keep a pet dog is a dangerous and serious misconception. Their formidable power, their potential for unpredictable behavior driven by ancient survival instincts, and their complex needs make them entirely unsuitable as household companions. Could humanity ever truly overcome these fundamental biological and behavioral barriers to domesticate bears? The answer, based on our current understanding, is almost certainly no. The intricate social lives of bears and dogs are fundamentally different, painting a clear picture of their distinct evolutionary paths. Most domestic dog breeds, even today, retain a strong and discernible social drive inherited from their highly social wolf ancestors. Wolves, as we know, live and hunt in well-organized cooperative packs that are characterized by clear social hierarchies and complex communication. This inherent social nature is widely considered to be a key reason why dogs bond so effectively and deeply with humans. They are often able to perceive human families as their surrogate pack, readily seeking out companionship, enjoying social interaction, and displaying loyalty. Bears, in stark contrast to this, are predominantly solitary creatures for most of their adult lives. The primary and most significant exception to this solitary existence is the strong bond between a mother bear and her cubs. She will typically stay with her offspring for a period ranging from 1 to 3 years, diligently teaching them all the essential survival skills they will need to thrive independently in the wild. Once the cubs are deemed old enough and capable enough to fend for themselves, they disperse and go their separate ways. Adult male and female bears usually only come together very briefly for the purpose of mating, and they do not typically form long-term pair bonds or live in extended family groups or large social congregations. This profound difference in their fundamental social structures greatly influences how they typically respond to the presence of humans. A lost or abandoned domestic dog, for example, might actively seek out human assistance or companionship, instinctively drawn to people. A bear, however, will almost invariably try to avoid direct human contact whenever possible. If a bear is suddenly surprised at close quarters, or if it feels cornered, or perceives a threat, especially to its cubs, its primary instinct is to defend itself or its young. This defensive behavior is not an act of aggression born out of malice, but rather a natural and predictable response for a solitary, powerful wild animal faced with a perceived danger. Understanding these very different social inclinations and inherent behavioral patterns is absolutely vital for ensuring safe and respectful coexistence between humans and these animals. We simply cannot and should not expect a wild bear to behave in the same manner as a domesticated dog. Approaching a wild bear with the same assumptions and expectations one might have when greeting a friendly neighborhood dog can lead to extremely dangerous and potentially tragic consequences. Their worlds, while sometimes appearing to overlap superficially in certain behaviors or appearances, are governed by vastly different sets of social rules, survival instincts, and communication signals. How does this predominantly solitary nature truly shape a bear's perception and interaction with the world around it, including us? Body language is a primary and crucial way in which animals communicate their intentions, their emotional state, and their warnings to one another. However, it is critically important to recognize that the very same gesture or posture can carry vastly different meanings in different species. This is certainly and demonstrably true when we compare the communication signals of bears and dogs. For instance, a dog wagging its tail is very often interpreted by humans, and usually correctly, as a sign of friendliness, happiness, or excitement. Nevertheless, even with dogs, the context of the tail wag is important. A stiff, high, and rapidly wagging tail can sometimes indicate tension or even impending aggression. For bears, tail wagging is not a prominent or easily interpreted communicative signal in the same way it is for canids. Consider, for example, the common sight of a bear standing up on its hind legs. Many people mistakenly and unfortunately believe that this posture is always an aggressive or threatening display. More often than not, however, a bear stands erect in this manner to get a better visual perspective of its surroundings or to more effectively catch scents carried on the wind. It is frequently a sign of simple curiosity, or an attempt to assess an unfamiliar situation or a distant object more clearly. A dog might also briefly stand on its hind legs, perhaps to beg for a food treat from a human or to try and see over a fence. But it is not typically used as a primary method of surveying its environment from a distance, in the same way a bear employs this posture. Vocalizations also differ significantly in their range and meaning between these two groups of animals. Domestic dogs possess a wide and nuanced repertoire of barks, whines, yelps, and growls, each capable of conveying subtle variations in meaning, a system of communication that has partly developed and been refined through their long and close association with humans. Bears also vocalize, though perhaps in ways less familiar to most people. They can huff, woof, snort, moan, roar, or make distinct popping sounds with their jaws, often referred to as jaw popping or clacking. A sharp huff from a bear might be a sign of agitation or a mild warning, while repeated jaw popping can be a much clearer and more serious signal of stress or an intention to defend itself if pressed. These sounds are integral parts of their communication with other bears and serve as a way to signal their intentions, often with the aim of avoiding direct physical conflict. Misinterpreting these species-specific signals can be exceptionally dangerous, particularly when dealing with an animal as powerful and potentially formidable as a bear. What might appear to be an invitation to approach or a display of harmless curiosity in a familiar domestic dog could in fact be a clear sign of acute stress, fear, or a direct warning from a bear. Learning to accurately read and understand the correct species-specific signals is absolutely crucial for anyone who might encounter these magnificent animals, especially when venturing into their natural wild habitats. It serves as a potent reminder that despite some outward, superficial similarities in appearance or isolated behaviors, bears and dogs truly speak very different languages. So, after our journey exploring their genetics, behaviors, and distinct lifestyles, we return to our initial question: are bears just giant dogs? The answer, resoundingly and unequivocally, is clear: no, they are not. While it is true that they share a very distant common ancestor far back in the mists of time, both belonging to the diverse order Carnivora, And while they may exhibit some superficially similar behaviors due to processes like convergent evolution or shared mammalian traits such as playfulness in youth, they are fundamentally and profoundly different creatures. Dogs, as we have seen, have been uniquely and extensively shaped by tens of thousands of years of domestication, a journey inextricably linked with living alongside and cooperating with humankind. Bears, conversely and crucially, remain deeply, unalterably and intrinsically wild. Their every instinct, their complex social structures or lack thereof in adulthood, and their innate responses to the world around them are all meticulously geared towards independent survival in their natural habitats, entirely separate from and not reliant upon humans. This inherent wildness is not something that should be feared or misunderstood, but rather something to be respected with profound awe and consideration. It is precisely this untamed spirit that makes them such magnificent, powerful, and awe-inspiring animals. Their formidable strength, their remarkable intelligence, and their admirable self-reliance are all integral components of this untamed, wild essence. The occasional similarities we observe, such as the endearing sight of a playful cub tumbling in the grass or the focused intensity of an inquisitive sniff at an unfamiliar scent, can certainly endear these creatures to us. These moments can spark a powerful sense of connection and wonder. However, this connection should ideally lead to a greater appreciation and understanding for them as bears in their own right, rather than prompting us to see them as merely oversized or untamed versions of our familiar domestic pets. Truly understanding their genuine nature helps us to coexist more safely and responsibly. And it also reinforces the urgent need to support the conservation of their wild spaces, the precious habitats which they so desperately need to survive and flourish. Ultimately, bears are unique, complex, and utterly fascinating animals, each species perfectly adapted to its own specific way of life within its ecological niche. They are not, by any stretch of the imagination, giant dogs, but rather majestic and potent symbols of the enduring wilderness that still graces our planet. They rightly command our deepest respect, our careful consideration, and our unwavering admiration for what they truly are: powerful, intelligent, resourceful, and forever wild creatures. As we contemplate their future, we might ask ourselves, what positive actions can each of us take to ensure that these incredible animals continue to roam the wild places of our Earth, inspiring awe and wonder for all generations to come?